Former footy grounds, here's the home of Durang Kay. They played in the Horsham District League until 1999. You wouldn't believe this was a footy oval. The only evidence is the massive sign as you drive in. It's just full of trees today and long grass. Known as a highwayman, it's on the road between Nhill and Dimbulla, right near the Pink Lake. The cricket pitch is still here, but apparently because there's no sport played here anymore, they had to plant trees to make it return to its natural state. GK was pretty much the minor league club in Nhill, and when they folded in 2000, they decided not to merge with them. The jumper was red with a black V for most of the club's history, but for the final couple of years of the club, they changed to the St Kilda hot cross bun design because it was way easier to get from Seacombe. I think this area was around where the club rooms were as you drive in. Not sure why they were removed. There might be a good reason, but this isn't very common for footy clubs. And on the other side of the ground, I think this is where the scoreboard was. Lucky there's some footage here of a game in 1988. I found this one of the saddest grounds to go to because of how little resemblance there is to this game. The goals were parallel to the highway. I couldn't really make out where they were meant to be. Durang Kay were a pretty successful team in the Lowan Star, then the Central Wimmera Lowan Star, but when they moved to the Horsham District League in 82, they kind of struggled. As did the rest of those teams from those former leagues. They've all merged or folded now. There's just not enough people around to justify all the clubs there once was. At least this sign still exists. Farewell from the home of the highwaymen. Former footy grounds, here's Boyo where they last played footy in 1960. They played in the Lowan Star Football League, which was the minor league surrounding Nhill in the Wimmera. However, cricket was played here up until about 15 years ago, which really surprises me because the ground's on a fairly big slant. Is this thing here a cricket net? I don't know, but the ground's also pretty small, so there would have been a lot of goals kicked here. You can still see the lines on the tennis court here, but it's fairly overgrown now. Boyo is only about 10 minutes outside of Nhill, and there's no town surrounding it, it's just farms. Boyo wore maroon with a gold V, and when the club sold the jumpers in 1966, the best ones were $2.50 and the cheapest ones were $1.50. I assume the hall was the club rooms, and it's just about to celebrate its 100th anniversary, although it has had a few upgrades over the years. But a very old school toilet out the back here. I thought it was interesting, haven't seen one like that before. Good to see the oval was mowed fairly recently, and the ground's still maintained by the locals. Former footy grounds, here's Netherby where Netherby Lowan played until 1982. The club started with Netherby and Lowan merging in the 60s, and they played in the Lowan Star League around Nhill. Apparently cricket was played here up until about 10-15 years ago. You wouldn't believe it with the fence on the ground and the tall grass. Known as the Saints, when the Lowan Star League finished, they joined the Central Wimmera Lowan Star, and when that finished, they joined the Horsham District, but only for one season, 1982. Unfortunately, you can see the cricket club room here starting to fall apart a bit. I think this might have been built just before the club folded. The whole West Wimmera Cricket League around Nhill finished in 2018, and now there's only one club in the area. You've got the courts out the back here. It's all really overgrown now. Netherby is about 30 k's north of Nhill, and there's only a few houses there, but for some reason I feel like this ground could be renovated again, but I guess it won't be. Netherby's definitely one of my favourite former grounds in the Wimmera. Former footy grounds, here's Antwerp, another former Lowan Star team. They finished playing in 1960. This facility was last used as a tennis club. They still have a club today, but it's not at this ground. There's only a few houses here. Antwerp is quite infamous, but I won't say why. I don't make true crime videos. Antwerp once played in the Japarat Seconds League and then the Dimbulla Seconds League, being in between those towns. There were still a few coffee cups in this shed here. I couldn't believe it because a lot of local teenagers visit this area because of the reason I mentioned before. That court is newer. They must have put it in after they stopped playing cricket here because it's very close to the pitch. Here you can see up the top the cricket pitch just next to that one tree and how close it is. Apparently Antwerp wore red and black, but I can't find much about the club nowadays. Still an interesting place to visit though. Former footy grounds, here's Yanuk where they last played footy in 1966. Today it's used by Yanuk in the Wimmera Hockey League. The grass is pretty tall because it's spring, but they did play the grand final here not that long ago. After the footy team finished, they started playing women's hockey here in the 70s, and a men's team started in 1983. Here's the old change room. It's amazing they play here because there's about 10 houses and it's 30 k's north of Nhill. Yanuk wore blue with a white monogram, a bit like Carlton. It's a pretty good jumper. Here's the old court. It's like a mini hockey ground now. And out in the middle, they still have the cricket pitch. The bench is sitting on it though. After Yanuk left the Lowan Star League, it only lasted 2 more seasons before it merged with the Central Wimmera League. First time I've seen a footy ground be used for hockey, but it's good to see it's still used by the community. Former footy grounds, here's Winam where the Winam Imperials last played in 1970. I think it was used for cricket up until 2018 when the West Wimmera League finished. You've got the Great Southern Stand here, although the bloke's nickname has been rubbed out now. There's a few McCartney sponsor signs, probably a relative of Jason McCartney, who's from Nhill. It's only about 10 minutes away. Everyone would be from Nhill that played for this club. You can see the cricket pitch here isn't that old. The ground is still maintained. I guess they still use the hole here. Winam played in the Lowan Star League, then moved to the Central Wimmera Lowan Star when that started, but they only lasted 2 years in that league before they folded, I assume due to low numbers. There's an old shed here. I guess it was used for storage. You've got cricket pads, gloves, there's a couple bats there. I'm no expert on bats, but they look like they're from the 90s to me. They were a strong side in the late 50s, early 60s, winning 2 grand finals against Yanuk and 2 against your Parrot seconds. Cricket club rooms up here. Would have been great to actually go in, but I just had a look through the window and you can see the jumper they wore blue with a white V. They still use the hole today, so good to see everything being preserved and looked after. It's a great little ground just south of Nhill. Former footy grounds, here's Broughton in Western Victoria. They haven't played footy here since the 30s. However, cricket and tennis would have been played much more recently. There's a really weird cover on this pitch. I haven't seen anything like it. Maybe it's to protect it from livestock more than anything else. The footy club didn't come back after World War II. You can see they won a premiership here in 1933, the West Wimmera Junior Football League. After that, they win the Lowan Star League and played there until 1939. The tennis court here doesn't seem that old, to be honest. Some chairs stacked up, and in the shed here, there was just some tennis supplies. There's a tennis net there. This tennis ball tin looked like it was from the 2000s maybe, but just another interesting former ground in the Wimmera.